Okay. We good to go, Kath?
We are, yes, Chair.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. Good morning all. Councillor Alid's absence, as he's just got some problems, I think, trying to dial in. So I'll just take the chair until hopefully he can join us. So just welcome everyone to today's meeting of the finance panel. I don't know, Kath, have we got any apologies for today?
I've received apologies from Councillor Glyn Preston.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And then that moves us on to item 2 on the agenda, which is declarations. Are there any declarations of interest from members? No, I can't see any hands. Thank you. So that then takes us on to item 3. 3.1 is to receive the minutes of our last meeting on the 13th of November. Can I assume that everybody's had the chance to read the minutes, and therefore just firstly ask if there's any corrections that need to be made?
Yeah, Pete, I've got under item 3, it says 2, PTHB contracts uplift. They're waiting for member concerned. They're not waiting for member concerned. What happened? We took a payment for back money which was owing, took no uplift. So the uplift we didn't have, which meant that we're going to be worse off longer than that. And the uplift, in my opinion, would have been greater than what the actual award for the back payments were. So it doesn't really reflect what I actually said, and it's not an action point. It's a point that we took less money than what we should have.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jeremy. Jane, did you want to respond to that one?
I think Councillor Jeremy is right. That was the query I think that was raised. But I think when we've picked it up on the minutes since, it was for yourself and me, Jeremy, to have a discussion about it so that I could clearly understand and have that conversation with you. And I think we did arrange a meeting, but I don't think we picked it up. So I think we probably just need a bit of a chat on that.
Okay, well, it'll stay for the next meeting then, will it?
Yeah.
Just ensure that we get it done. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you both. Any other points from anyone on the accuracy of the minutes?
I got one other point. It comes under actions on item 4, environment. What actually is a criteria for the council use environment? Because I think I'd like to understand, what the criteria is. So I'm not against them, but I don't understand the criteria.
Okay, thank you. Yep, saw your hand there, Jane. Yes, over to you, Jane.
If I come in, so just for all members to be clear, environment is when we move a budget from where it was approved at the outset by council to another area or code within the financial ledger. So it's a movement of budget between the two. There is a set criteria around it, particularly around the thresholds. So the same principle applies to all environments, but depending on the value, there are different approval mechanisms. So up to 25,000, it can be approved by a head of service within their own service. If it exceeds that value, it then gets approved via the portfolio holder as well. And then if it exceeds, I think it's 100,000, it actually has to go to cabinet then for approval. And if it exceeds 500,000, it has to be approved by council.
That's great. I understand the process, but I don't understand the criteria for using them. Surely there must be a criteria of when you can use them and when you can't. You can't just decide to move the money just out of the blue. So if it's possible, I can have the criteria. So I think it'll give me better understanding in the future.
I think the best thing to do then, Councillor Jeremy, if I send you the pages from the financial regulations that set it all out, you can have a look through that. And if you've got any further questions, then please come back to me.
I'll give it my best shot.
Thanks for Jane, is that perhaps something I'd find that useful as well? Is that something that you could perhaps circulate around to all members of the panel?
Yeah, I'll arrange that through Kath and we'll get those pages sent out to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Craig, I can see your hand up there.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just on that part with regards to promoting the awareness of the financial regulations within the Constitution, we're working with colleagues across the organisation, comms included, to develop the understanding and share the links to the Constitution for everybody to be fully aware of the procedures to follow.
Thank you. Did any other members have any comments on the minutes from last time? No, I can't see any other hands. So, Kath, do we need to? Oh, sorry, Councillor Chris. I think you're on mute, Chris.
Sorry, Chair, my computer's a little bit slow. I don't know why.
No problem.
I'm not on there. I was just picking up on page 4. It mentions about a 10-year capital programme. And a question that poses for me is that in the response, it then says it's difficult to set realistic plans, particularly for schemes where the Welsh Government grant funding is on there. Is that the grant funding for school or general grants coming in? Because I don't sit on the schools scrutiny committee, so it's just to aid my understanding. So there's that question first of all, because it's saying an intervention rate of 65%, and I don't quite understand that, so we're seeking clarification on that point first, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chris. James, I can see your hand up.
Yeah, so the 65% rate, it does relate to schools for secondary or primary schools. Obviously, there's a different rate for special schools and PRUs, pupil referral units. Again, the Welsh Government, whilst they may have approval in principle of a funding envelope, only until we have reached that final business case stage does any funding award letter is issued. So a lot of things happen in year. So it's very difficult to build these in. We'll build our estimates into future years and where we think we're going to be. But the actual grant award letter, which is when we are actually going to, Welsh Government have confirmed they're going to pay us that grant, will only be received right at that point where almost construction is about to begin. So there's quite a lot of uncertainty until that point.
Thank you, James. Is that okay, Councillor Chris? Or?
Yeah, that's fine. That's how I thought it was, but I just thought I would ask for that point of clarity. The other question I've then got in relation to the minutes, and I'm just trying to see what it is, and it's based around some of the capital assets on the, where was it? And it was in relation to the decision that we made at full council, where some of the capital assets couldn't be sold, or unless there'd been a discussion about it and approved by council. And I just wondered of whether that's going to have any significant consequence going forward for the Cabinet to be able to make decisions regarding capital receipts.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Chris. Oh, Jane, yes, sorry, just saw your hand go up there, Jane. I think you're on mute, Jane.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it was a motion passed by council at the last meeting. Yep. So that will prevent us from going forward with any new approvals for any sale of certain assets. So at the moment, it doesn't create a significant impact on our capital programme and our capital financing for the current year, because we already have those capital receipts that we would utilise for that in hand. So there is no immediate impact. However, of course, should that decision be delayed further, then of course it will start to impact on the future funding of the capital programme.
And that would then indicate that we would need to borrow potentially more money at a higher rate than what we've been borrowing previously in the past.
Or just borrowing generally,
yeah.
Where we would look to utilise capital receipts, there isn't then that added revenue cost to support the borrowing that we would have to take out.
Okay, so an added cost to the council and the taxpayers. Yep, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Pleased to see our chair has now joined us now, Councillor Allard. I think as well you did just have your hand up before Councillor Jeremy Allard. So at this stage we're just going through item 3.1, the minutes from last time, and just picking up on members' queries and questions from there. So I guess if you're happy, I'll hand the chair over to you now.
Well, I was going to suggest you carry on till the end of this item. You know what actions you've picked up
No
up to this
problem.
point. But I just wanted to make a point on the schools and the 10-year program. There's always going to be difficulties looking forward 10 years, but it does give you a framework, and there's always going to be assumptions, and those assumptions will get more tenuous as you go further away. So, you know, from my point of view, it's good to have that 10-year program in support of what our audit committee are asking, whether, you know, and you can make the assumption that you're going to get the support from Welsh Government. But if that doesn't materialise, you obviously have to change your plans as you go forward. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with the basic principle of having a long-term program, setting a clear path for the council. Just on the question of the full council decision the other day, that was only a delay until policies were in place, and it's up to the council to get those policies in place quickly. You know, you just need relevant policies and effective policies, and it's up to the council to get those in place quickly. And as for this financial year, the capital sales have well exceeded the target. So there's absolutely no problem issue within this 12 months. I can't remember what the target was, about 2 million or 1.5, 2 million. I can't remember, but the sales are well over 6 million already, aren't they? Potential sales, I should say. Thank you. Thanks,
Is there
Chair.
anything you wanted to say on that, Jane, or you're happy with that?
No,
Tom?
only, you know, the comments that are made are fair. And as I said, it doesn't have an immediate impact on us at all. And noting that the sooner we get the policy in place and approved, then obviously it would step back from that original decision anyway.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Jeremy, then Councillor David and Councillor Chris. So Councillor Jeremy.
Basically, Alan's picked up most of mine. I was going to say we'd reached the targets and everything, so we're well there. Council doesn't have to spend money it doesn't got. It can refrain from spending, so it doesn't need to borrow more than what it needs at a higher rate. Secondly, I think the real point here is what the stumbling block is that we're not all on the same page of what a 10-year plan or a 5-year plan is there to achieve. And I think we actually need to debate as the finance and the governance panel to understand a clear understanding of what a 10-year plan is, because a 10-year plan is not something like the 10 Commandments where you have to live the rest of your life by it. This, you can vary it 2 years, 5 years and everything else. The problem at the moment, when I read the minutes here, and then I'm listening to people, we've all got slightly different versions, and I think we need to get clarity on what we believe a 10-year or a 5-year plan, I don't mind either, I prefer 10, is, but if we've all on the same page, we all know what we're talking about. And at the moment, I don't believe we've got that clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremy. Councillor David.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a couple of points around the 10-year programme with regard to capital spend. I think we have to recognise that any sort of programme based on assumptions is not a plan. And we've really got to make that distinction, because that's where financial irresponsibility has stepped in the past. Assumptions do not equal plans. And we've been saying for quite some time now, and we've been emphasising the fact that we're in an economic crisis, particularly with regard to any capital coming from Welsh Government. WLGA made it absolutely clear, we'll have more guidance on this come Wednesday, hopefully, that there's going to be a squeeze on capital, and any capital schemes coming forward from all local authorities are going to be subject to increased scrutiny as far as Welsh Government funding is concerned. So the idea at the moment, I'm not writing this off completely, but the idea at the moment of a 10-year programme based on assumption is a no-go for me. I don't think we should be assuming anything with regard to Welsh Government funding going forward. Possibly a 5-year plan is something that we might be able to give more attention to, but even that holds certain risks as far as financial planning is concerned. So I just wanted to make that point. I think it's absolutely essential. We do fully understand the economic situation we're in at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Allen?
Sorry, just very quickly to come back on that. Some council education papers, plans for future bills reference 10 years, potential bills in 10 years' time. Either there's no reference to 10 years and limit them to 5 years, or there has to be a consistent approach across the council, across all services, not just finance. I know finance are really consistent about their approach to things, but all services have got to apply the same discipline as well. And forward budgets are full of assumptions. We will be looking at the budgets coming forward now. There's assumptions around inflation, some assumptions around pay awards, contract increases, and everything. You cannot get away from some assumptions. And during our last item, we will hopefully try and test those and ask those questions around those assumptions applied to the future year's budgets. So there's nothing wrong with assumptions. It's how you test them and how realistic they are in achieving those assumptions.
Can I just come back there, Chair, because there's a distinct difference between a financial assumption and a projection. And what we're talking about as far as budget planning is concerned are projections, not assumptions. This is not a time to assume anything with regard to financial planning. That's the only point I'm making. And can I just remind members that as far as any funding of the capital programme is concerned going forward, that's going to have to be based on short-term borrowing in the main and capital receipts. So it's absolutely essential. We want to see some planning, that planning takes place around the potential of increasing our capital receipts. It's as simple as that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Chris?
Yeah, just picking up on that. I mean, I think this discussion has been really helpful because it shows where members are at different points, and it depends on your own experience and your knowledge of the financial system. I mean, when we're talking about whether it's going to be a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, or a 10-year plan, some people refer it as short, medium, and long term. So it's semantics in some ways on it. But to me, I was grateful to Councillor Allard clarifying the point around the effective policies, if that's what is required in relation to the decision that was then made. That it would be helpful to get that in place, because my concern after reflecting on that decision was that going to give us any longer term implications going forward. In relation to what Councillor Jeremy said, and I think it is important about trying to give us some certainty and a direction of travel. I do agree in that. And to me, I've worked with a 3-year rolling programme. So my balance position would be on year 3 to get settled. But then what we would then have is you would roll it on each year as long as you were making progress towards it. If you weren't, then it wouldn't get rolled on to that 3rd year. So, it would remain. So it brings in some form of accountability in there. And I think that's the key to a lot of this, is about holding people to account if they're not delivering. That then needs to come in, and that's why there is some potential, and I think we've had it in other meetings, Chair, where we've looked at the new performance system, and there is a potential for that to become more robust and more meaningful, but it's a journey in progress. And as we do say, we do have elections every couple of years, and that then sometimes stops some of these things on there, because you could have a new administration in post, which then has a different direction of travel. But I think having some of that certainty would help.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Chris. I guess just a comment for me. I do agree as well. I thought that was a very good, interesting debate and discussion that we just had there, and it does seem to me an appetite for a 5-year and possibly a 10-year plan. I suppose just the point for me is we've talked about that. We all seem to have some different views on it and a good discussion, and even Councillor Chris with a 3-year rolling plan. It's how and when do we actually make a decision on actually having that plan? I don't know if that's one or an opportune time to hand over to the chair, or Jane, sorry, I could just see your hand coming up there. I think you're on mute again, Jane.
Sorry, Chair.
It's all right.
Yeah, the rolling programme, so the capital budget is approved by council for the next financial year. So it's a 1-year approval with an approval in principle of the longer term plan. But obviously that then gets updated on an annual basis and formally approved by council just before the start of that next financial year. So just to give you that clarity, really.
Thank you. Councillor Alid?
And it's completely within the gift of the cabinet how they present their financial plans for the future, but it's however long they want to make it. Really, it's within the gift of the cabinet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, members. And any further comments on the minutes or no? Okay, in the absence of that, sorry, Kath, do we need to go to a vote on the minutes to approve them, or?
No, well, you can put them forward and second them as a correct document, and chair can sign them off.
Okay, well, I'd be happy to propose them as a true record. Is there a seconder? Yeah, Councillor Jeremy, thank you. Okay, right, well, that moves us on to 3.2, Chair. We're on the action log, so welcome, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. And I don't know whether some of these have been touched on already or not. When you're going through the minutes, so yeah, pages 3 to 12. Oh, and apologies again for delaying getting in. I was there for a good 30 minutes, trying numerous links Kath had sent to me, and thank you, Kath, for your patience as well. It's that Monday morning feeling, I think, for the laptop was having. So actions, and just yeah. So we talked about the actions on page 5, haven't we? The 5-year, 10-year program actions. Total cost of discounts and exemptions. Has that been discussed by the panel this morning around the council tax exemptions?
No.
Do we have a response to that, Kath?
Yes. Do you want me to share
Yes, please.
the BI?
Yes. I'm still looking for it at the moment. Thanks, Kath. And can you
Bear with me 1 second.
put it into presentation?
Yeah.
More?
Screen. Bear with me, I've just lost my screen.
It has been sent out to all members? I assume it has.
I don't know whether I've sent the
Okay.
thing.
And can you? It's still in. It's not in presentation mode yet, but
no, it's okay.
Oh.
I think I've got gremlins too.
Don't worry about it. The one relating to the council tax. Can you read the response out or not?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, regarding the council tax base, total cost of all discounts is what
Yes.
we've received. Okay,
Yeah.
total cost of all discounts be emailed to chair and shared with finance panel. The response we've had from Andrew Griffiths is in respect of the financial year 2023-24, gross council tax liability was 136.5 million. Discounts awarded 11.3 million. Exemptions awarded 4.6 million. Council tax reduction 11.1 million and disabled band reduction 0.3 million. I'll try and share that as well.
And that gives us just over 25 million, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I used to think it was over 30 million a few years ago. Perhaps my memory was wrong. And almost half the residents or households get some sort of discount. From my memory, just over half from the last figure I saw. Jane's nodding her head.
Yeah, that's correct, Chair.
Okay. And all these discounts, these 25 million, they are statutory. They're bound up in legislation, and there's only a couple that's local discretion is involved
That's
around
correct.
flooding, and they come to a fairly low sum, don't they?
Yeah, we could provide that so that you know exactly which ones are discretionary, but the majority are statutory and defined in legislation, and then we just apply them.
Okay. Thanks. Your screen's come up again with the figures on the right-hand side. Thanks, Kath. Any questions, members, on those particular figures and discussing and such? No? Everybody happy with that? And can you pass our thanks on to Andrew, Jane, for digging those out? Our next action was around the requirements for the transport replacement reserves, head of service to provide panel with update.
Detail was in the Q2 finance report.
Yes.
I don't know if it's been provided separately, Kath. If not, and if members need to have that further, then we can, by all means, provide the paragraphs from the report which sets it all out.
I think most of the panel will have seen those anyway. I think I don't quite remember the context of this. Chris.
Yes, Chair. Again, just going back to the council tax, there was one further action or clarification on there where it mentioned that there was going to be a potential revaluation of council tax, and there was the Welsh Office Finance Minister was going to release. I just wondered whether we'd heard anything about that.
I think it's Jane and David were at a meeting on that. Jane, can you update?
Yeah, Welsh Government have issued their consultation about the council tax reform that they are proposing. There is quite a lot of detail in the consultation document. We are planning a session with all members of the council in January to take you all through that so that you can be clear on the implications of that reform. There are a number of questions that are being asked by Welsh Government as part of that consultation. Some are the speed to which any reform is implemented, but also the degree to which any reform is implemented as well. So there are various options within that consultation. It's probably too much detail to go into today, but as I said, we will be doing a consultation, a member development piece where we will go through that in detail so that you can understand the impact of those proposed reforms on the residents of Powys specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Pete.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Jane. I just wondered as well, without trying to create any more or extra work, would it be possible to have like some bullet point briefing ahead of that session?
I'll see what we've got. The consultation is quite lengthy and there is a lot of documentation there. We do have a number of presentations, so probably once we're ready with the detail for that, I think the presentation that we'll share with you on the day will give you that, but if we can release that in advance, then we will look to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Just on the timeline, when are they looking to introduce such revaluation, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's part of the consultation about
Okay.
when certain things will be released. So it's
Okay.
not imminent. It would be April 2025, I think, at the earliest.
At the earliest, yeah.
But again, that is part of the consultation questions.
Okay. Thanks, Jane. David, your hand popped up. Oh, it's there again, David.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to add something onto that, not specifically to do with the consultation around council tax reform, but it's becoming apparent that with regard to exemptions, discounts, etc., around council tax, there seems to be a lack of knowledge amongst the membership. And it's something I've been discussing with officers, so I haven't had a chance to discuss it with Jane yet, but possibly we could tag on to that development session, a briefing on what exemptions, discounts, etc., are available and who they might potentially apply to. So I just thought I'd share that information. Thanks, Chair.
And thank you, David. I remember having a go at social media stuff back in the previous council about what exemptions there were and a bit of basic data around the council tax, because the council does try and support those who are less able to afford to pay the council tax. And as we say, about almost half the resident households within Powys, well, slightly more than half the households get some sort of discount, some level of discount, which is important to understand when you're talking about the affordability of council tax increases. But again, that's never highlighted within the budget debates, is it? But it's important to understand, and that would be a good idea. Thank you, David. Right, any other actions flowing out of the last minutes? Have I missed anything? No? Right. But back to the agenda. Next item. Well, we want to go. Oh no, there's forward work program. Apologies. That's for noting on page 13 of your pack. Any comments on that before we go to the exempt item? No. Right. Item 5, the exempt item. We've got to pass this resolution. I need everybody to vote on this. Can somebody, or shall I put forward the motion? That, and then can I have somebody to second, please?
I'm happy to move, Chair. So
and everybody in favour?
Yep. Yeah, more than happy.
Thank you very much. And before we go off this public session, thank you to Jane and thank you to David, the portfolio holder, for coming along, as well as Craig. Good to see you this morning. So we'll go off ahead now and we'll have a discussion about these budget financial pressures within the next financial year. Brilliant. Thank you much. Thanks all.